Today, 25 million Latinas live in the U.S., and more than 8 million of them are younger than 18. And these women have extraordinary potential, but far too many of them live in poverty and lack educational opportunity. I started the Eva Longoria Foundation to help Latinas access resources and opportunities to build better futures. We focus on education because we know that getting a good education and graduating from college is life-altering, and it is the single best way to break the cycle of poverty. So I commissioned UCLA's Civil Rights Project to study the factors which contribute to success for Latinas, so we can better understand what makes the difference between dropping out of high school and graduating from college. The young women profiled in this research, some of whom are featured in this video, all faced huge challenges in their lives. Some were undocumented, most had parents with less than a high school education, all were low income, and one had a child while in high school. But they all found a way, making friends with kids who knew how to get to college, seeking guidance from teachers and counselors. Most had parents or family members who also encouraged them and believed in them. And this was the critical difference between these women and some of their friends who didn't finish high school or go on to college.
I remember wanting to be an astronaut because I love the stars and I wanted to go into space.
Since then, I kind of already had an interest in cars. I started to kind of connect the dots and see where it could take me. I think that's when I started to get more interested in engineering.
Something that's always been my passion, or that I've always wanted to do, is work with special education.
Hopefully have my master's by then and working as a counselor with children.
I really want to go into a lot of teaching the children with special needs.
In 10 years, I'll be close to 32. And I will for sure have gone to grad school. Whether it's a master's or PhD, I'm sure I will have that under my belt, under my resume. I will most likely be working. I'll have like a career, and I think I will be financially supporting my parents.
This kind of belief in oneself that I do have possibilities carries a lot of young women through very challenging circumstances. We've also seen that it is a real preventative to early pregnancy. Because if a young woman believes there's something out there for her and that she can achieve it, that is a powerful antidote to school failure. Much of the underachievement, the loss of talent, the underrealization of potential for these young women is really tied to poverty. And I think we have to face that. Growing up in poverty has tremendous consequences for all young people, not just Latinos, but it happens that Latinos are disproportionately growing up in poverty.
My mom works in a factory. She didn't finish school. She probably only finished to 3rd grade. She's been there, working there almost 17 years, almost. So, and that's why she's kind of been my inspiration to continue school.
It wasn't until junior, senior year that I started realizing that because I was undocumented, I wasn't gonna have access to that financial aid. I don't know if I was naive, as in not really measuring, how expensive college is. We had to go off to pawn shops and, sell our jewelry, whatever I had, for my quinceañera, in order to get money to pay off tuition.
My parents always told me, like, you need to go to school, you need to go to college, and they talked about the menial jobs that they work, like, don't wake up at 4 in the morning, like, you don't have to live this life, like, you can do better.
Parents need to know that they are incredibly powerful in this regard, that they can provide these dreams for their girls.
For as long as I can remember, since I was in kindergarten, my parents just told me, maybe I didn't even know exactly what college was. They would say it in Spanish, la universidad. But I just knew that it was something I had to do and I was gonna do because that would make me have a better future.
I remember going with my sister to Dominguez Hills so she can probably just to buy books or to go to counseling offices. But I remember her giving me like a tour of the school and showing me like, oh, like this is a library, this is where you get your books, and this is where my classes are at.
We're always given books, and we're always encouraged to read. My parents read, more my mom, but we were always encouraged to do well in school, and we were praised for doing well.
My plans in terms of school was go to university and I wanted to become a pediatrician. When I found out I was pregnant, everything kind of went blank. I didn't know what I was going to do, but my husband was like, no, I'm gonna work, you're gonna go to school, and you're gonna be someone in life.
Schools need to know that it's really important to support those kinds of dreams and ambitions and give young women something to look forward to be hopeful about.
I was born in South Central. It's a bad neighborhood. There's a lot of shooting. In school, it was like my place. Like, I belong there. I liked school. I always have. Like, I feel when I'm in class or when I was in school, I feel like I was in the right place. Like, I was doing something good with myself.
Ever since I was in middle school, I joined a program called AVID, where they took us to field trips to like college campuses.
Because AVID, for at least us, what they always said, we're all going to college. That was our motto. We're all going to college, and so that's something that for me, it's like I never questioned, whether I was going to go to college or not. I just knew I was.
We would go over to Utah State University, and they would have MESA days. So children would participate in different science experiments or different science competitions.
Actually, in one of my English classes, one of my projects was to, if I was to graduate high school in that moment, what would be my top 5 choice colleges? And at that time, I think I picked like Harvard, Yale, like all the Ivy Leagues, Wellesley, all those schools. So college is just, at least since education-wise, like it's always something that's been in the picture.
One of the problems of growing up in concentrated poverty is that there's oftentimes a lack of role models in these communities. Somebody who's already gone to college and been pretty successful in one area or another. It turns out that having a Latino teacher predicts for going on to college. These are people who are emissaries from the Latino community who have in fact gone to college, who have been successful.
I remember the teacher I had that year, his name was Mr. Garcia. He was a Hispanic teacher. And he would really encourage me, he would push me. Like, you would have like those reading tests that they would make you do in the classroom. And he would always tell me like, oh, you got 90 words last time in 1 minute, let's see if you could do more this time, like things like that.
My AP Spanish teacher in high school was very supportive of me, and she was very encouraging, and she was the one that also talked to me about going to college. My parents felt more welcomed by her, and they felt like they were being more involved in my education. And I guess just because she spoke Spanish, and she also came from an immigrant parent background, and she was a teacher now.
In high school, I didn't have too many Latino or Latina teachers, but I did have my Spanish teacher, Mr. Zua, which I still keep in contact with him too. He had this phrase of "si se puede," you can do it. At that time, he was actually working on his master's degree as well, going part-time to Fullerton, and so he talked a lot about that.
My counselor was Mr. Pina, and he was Hispanic, and I felt like I bonded more with him. He was born in Mexico as well, and I just felt like they had a lot of things in common with my parents and his parents. How he started off in a low-income family, he just worked himself up, and he's a counselor, and he said he was doing really well with his life, and he's proud of where he was at, and I hope I can be the same way one day too.
One of the things that pops out in the research is that early good performance in mathematics is a very good predictor of graduating high school and going on to college. And the reason this could be very important for Latinas in particular is that many tend to shy away from mathematics.
When I was in 6th grade, they did what they call the diagnostic test for math, I guess, to see if you can start being advanced in math. So in 6th grade, I started taking pre-algebra, which was what some 8th graders or 7th graders were barely taking. So I would say that was the start of me being advanced in mathematics. I had liked math since I was in elementary school. It was always my favorite subject, but I would say that at that point, it wasn't not only my favorite subject, but I was like, okay, I'm actually good at this. Like, I felt really confident in math since that point on.
Ninth grade year in the summer, I took summer school for geometry to advance because my teacher saw that, I was good at math. I started off my 9th grade year with trigonometry, and then from there I went on to pre-calculus and then calculus, AB and BC.
And there was 4 women in our AP Calculus class, and in a class of probably like 20. And those were the kids who all wanted to do engineering. And all the women, we all sat together and we all supported each other through math. And it was very important to have that support group of just women, even though there wasn't many of us.
I was the only freshman in my geometry class. It was mostly juniors and seniors, mostly seniors trying to graduate, and they needed to do 2 years of math. So I was the only freshman, and I remember all the juniors and seniors like, oh, you're smart, let's look at her, like get help from her.
A huge predictor of finishing high school and going on to college is getting into classes in which one is surrounded by peers who are doing well and who are headed off for high school graduation and college.
When I was in high school in some of those AP Calculus classes, I was a junior or a senior, but then there was also people who were 1 year older than me that were in there. So like I kind of contacted them, and like for a couple of them are actually engineering majors at UC Irvine. So the fact that I spoke to them also about the major, that also kind of like made me, oh, you know, well, I was in a class with them, like I would get similar grades to them. If they're doing it, I could do it too.
I wanted to take AP classes because that's what my friends were doing. They told me, oh, take an AP class, you'll get college credit. I didn't know what that meant, I just knew that I had to do it. And then I knew that all my other friends in my other honors classes were taking AP classes.
I got most of my information about college through my peers, especially my peers whose parents had gone to college, because they knew the ropes. I honestly did not know.
Growing up and going to school in a segregated school has negative effects, and changing that, providing them with the opportunity to have more contact with mainstream kids, with teachers who are teaching in the mainstream and therefore have a set of standards that are pegged towards the mainstream, in communities that are more diverse, would have a tremendously positive impact on the educational outcomes for these young Latinas. One of the things that popped right out in the interviews that we did with young women was their engagement in extracurricular activities. In virtually every case, they had been seriously involved in sports or in music in particular. These involvements with these kinds of activities bring with them a whole lot of other supports for these young women, in addition to making them simply feel more engaged in school and actually being in school more.
By me being involved in the sport, I got to become closer with my counselor. He would also say, come on, you know, we want to see you guys out on the field. You guys need to keep your grades up.
Being in the soccer team helped me through my high school, because that was kind of my motivation, because if you wanted to be in the team, you had to have good grades. So first semester, I had straight A's. Second semester, I'll get some B's, but still A's. I think even though if I wouldn't have had the soccer team, I still would have had good grades, but not as good, because, you know, like maybe I would have just gone home and watched a novela or something, you know?
Being part of the sports team in cross country, it influenced me with school a lot because it kept me busy. And so my time management, I always had to deal with that. It kept me on track with, you know, doing my homework assignments and making sure I didn't fall behind with work.
I joined these clubs because my friends were in it. And they're like, oh, you should join. Like, come check us out. I've joined CSF, with California Scholarship Federation, which was an English teacher of mine. So she was the one that told us to join.
When I was in high school, I was really involved in orchestra. It was my pride and joy, and by the time I was a senior, I got a National Orchestra Award, which was very encouraging at the end of the year. And so we were the ones really leading the orchestra. We had to set the example, and we used to tune everybody now. I didn't realize then, but those were leadership skills that I learned and I attained just from playing music. And it was something that I just really, really enjoyed.
For many years now, I've been really very focused on what it is that effectively goes right when a young Latina who comes from a low-income background with parents who don't have a lot of education is very successful educationally. In the research that we did for this particular study, it was very interesting to find that if you are a Latino and bilingual, you have a higher chance of going on to college than if you are not.
I think by being bilingual, I feel like I can identify with that culture where, yes, I was born here, yes, I am a US citizen legally, but I feel like I'm still Mexican, and I still feel definitely connected to that. I feel connected to my roots.
For being able to speak 2 languages, I think it's kind of helped me out a lot because, I get to communicate to my family members in Spanish. I get to talk to professionals in English. And I feel like knowing 2 languages kind of opens more doors to you. And that's the reason why I'm trying to teach my son to learn Spanish and English also, and maybe throw in a little Chinese in there.
If there's one thing that I would like people to walk away thinking about as a result of the work that we've done here, is that these young women have all the great potential that young women have always had in this country, that every new immigrant group has brought, with it. And these women too can do just as well and perhaps even better, and they can do it in 2 cultures and 2 languages if we give them the opportunity.
I kind of have like this vision where I not only want to make myself self-sufficient, but I would also want to help other people in my community be self-sufficient.
I've struggled a bit coming from a low-income community, where a lot of the times students don't finish high school or just finish high school but don't go on to college. So for me, going back and giving back and showing others, especially students, that don't have that in mind, or don't have that support sometimes at home. If you have that motivation and you're determined to continue on with your education, then, it's possible.
If you're educated, maybe then your son will be like, hey, like my mom went to college, she went somewhere, I'm gonna do the same, Like with me, with my mom, she didn't go to college or school, so I kind of thought, let me try to do what she didn't do, but my son's gonna say, let me do what my mom did.
These wonderful young women are living examples of what is possible. They are providing us insight into the changes we can make to put more Latinos on the path to college. So contact the Civil Rights Project, see what we're doing to make these dreams a reality, and download the report, Making Education Work for Latinas.